Good morning, hello, good afternoon, wherever you are in the magic world. My name is Lloyd and today I'm going to share with you a few of my favourite tips that will hopefully help you get more creative. So my first tip, and this one can feel a little bit daring when you first try it, but it's one of my favourites to do and I still do it as often as I can today. It's basically this: whatever your comfort performing piece is, say it's card magic or coin magic, go to your next gig or the next time you go out to perform to the public and don't take your cards with you, don't take your coins with you, and instead ask your audience, when it comes up in conversation about a trick about to be shown or that you're going to do some magic, just ask your audience, okay, hand me anything, and then ask them, what would you like me to do with this object? There's a few ways you can get yourself into and out of trouble. One of them is if they hand you something and your mind goes blank, say, okay, now hand me something which is completely different to this too. So you have two objects. Usually you can find a way to combine these into something. The other thing is if you completely choke and you don't have anything to do, okay, you say, what do you want me to make it do? You can, depending on the situation and what they give you, you can make light of it and just back out. I have done this once or twice, like when I first started doing this years ago, which is, say they give you an old coin or a button or something, and you can't think of anything to do, you say, okay, I can make it vanish and throw it and just leave. But once you get over the first initial nerves, you can start doing some really fun things. You can start, I've had, one of my favorite things is somebody's handed me some ice. I'm like, okay, hand me something else, a straw. Okay, first thing that came to my mind, it hasn't got to be super creative, but just do a strike vanish, yeah? Or if you leave the straw in their glass and you have the ice, you can do a false transfer. As you say, do you mind if I take this straw out of your glass? As you reach in, drop the ice secretly back in the glass and make it vanish with the straw. And you haven't got to be really creative with your methods or ideas when you begin, but just have have that fail-safe in your mind that you can do magic with anything, and whatever they tell you to do, you can do it. Whether they change it, make it vanish. A lot of the times you can do the same thing for the same effect, but that's a whole different ball game. But as you start to carry on doing this, you will find that you'll just come up with something new, and it may not be that it's new, but it could be a new presentation for you to go off and work on, or a new effect. But the best people are your audience to listen to, because they'll tell you what they want to see. And when they tell you what they want to see, you can create your magic around what impresses them the most, or what's going to get the best reaction from them the most. And this will instinctively make you a better performer if you adhere to what they say and come back on the spot, feel that. So first tip, don't take your cards or your coins with you, just say, hand me something, what do you want to do with this object? It feels really scary the first time, but with a few fail-safes you can get yourself out of trouble if you need to. But you will find, if you do this, and I tell a lot of people to do this, a lot of people ask me to work with them and things, how do I get more creative? Number one, go to your next gig, don't take a deck of cards, just ask your audience what they want you to do. Okay, number two, this is a bit of a tricky one, but I use this as an exercise sometimes. Go and find a plot in magic which has been done over and over, something like the any card, any number, maybe not that difficult, maybe like the visual ambitious rising card, where you have a card out-jogged in the deck and it visually rises, okay? So take a plot like that and go off and try and create some methods with it, for it, but don't go and look at what's already out there. So just go and try and create some methods. Now 9 times out of 10, and it happens, it'll happen mostly every time, you'll create something which has already been done, which is good. You want to be at this position. So you create something that's already been done, now put that away, get rid of that, and go off and create it again using a different method. And I repeat this process until, and you need to research it every time, but eventually you'll come across, you'll get to a point where you've done all the methods, or as many as you can find that exist out there, you've created them. And this is a slow process, but it really helps to train your brain to think differently. But eventually, you'll have exhausted every method you can find. I'm not saying that every one that's ever existed, but whatever you can research. And at this point, it's a good position to be in, because your brain is in that mode where it's continuously attacking the same problem, but from different angles, because you're forcing it to. And it doesn't work every time, but eventually, in certain cases, you will create a new method. Now, it doesn't mean that the method is necessarily better than the ones that exist, or achieves anything more than the ones that already exist. And sometimes it's not even, you know, worth even sharing with your friends, but it gets your brain thinking into places that possibly hasn't been before, or that certain effects haven't been approached from before. You know, instead of thinking, okay, I'm stuck, I've thought of every gaff method that I can go for, what can I do? Well, then think, okay, what about a different presentational way of doing it? What about a new sleight of hand way of doing it? What about if it's just a new way of presenting the script that somehow elevates it? So attack a really common effect as much as you can. Every time you think you've got a new method, research it. Hopefully it's been done before. Trash it, start again. And you will be surprised at how often you come across entirely new ground. And this is just as a creative exercise, but sometimes you can come across something really interesting and you can share it with your friends, and you may have just found the next best trick of the year. Okay, this is one of my favourite ones to do. Go and grab your best magic friend, in my case it's Geraint Clark, and you're going to have yourselves a magic create-off. And we've been doing this for about 12 years, and basically what it is this. You give each other a plot to work on. Let's say the piece-by-piece Tournament of Sword card. You give each other 2 weeks, or 1 week, but in our case 2 weeks, and you cannot talk to each other about that trick within those 2 weeks. And you give each other certain stipulations. So for instance, it has to be visual, it has to be workable, it has to be a new method as far as you can find. You can't talk to each other for those new weeks. You meet up somewhere for lunch or at a bar, wherever you like to go, and winner buys dinner, basically. You have to go and perform it, show each other it, and it's something about that sport format that when you're creating a trick and you get fed up of it, you think, oh, I'll go to sleep now, or I'll work on something new. Because you have this element of competition, you will think, no, I've got to do it, I've got to find something new. And what's interesting is that some of our favourite, me and Geraint, some of our favourite creations that we still perform to this day have been born from this format. So it may not be your best magical friend, but it could be somebody that you respect online, on social media, or maybe an old mentor that you want to just challenge yourself with, and just say, okay, this is the plot, it's any card at any number, or ambitious card, or collectors, or anything. 2 weeks, these are the rules. Don't talk to me about what you're doing on yours, I won't talk to you about mine. We'll meet up in 2 weeks, we'll perform it to the public and see what we've got. Tip number 4, this is the way that I create mostly all of my visual magic. And this is something that like Tommy Wonder has touched on. But really the inspiration for me came from watching a documentary a long time ago called Man on Wire about Philippe Petit, the French trapeze wire, the high wire walker who walked between the Twin Towers in New York City. He said something, he's an amateur magician, and in the documentary he shows that he climbed up the street lamps, on the top of street lamps and lampposts and high places, just to look at the area differently, from a different perspective. And it was really profound to me in terms of a magical sense, because instead of just looking up, the way I approached my magic was then, instead of looking at myself in the camera or the mirror, or just from the audience's point of visual view, I was like, I don't know why, but it made me think, if I could really do magic, how would the audience imagine it would look? Alright, so not how would it look from standing over there, but how, if you said to an audience member, okay, there's a magician coming on stage in 2 seconds, or he's going to meet you, he's going to do this thing where he makes a coin vanish from his hand, okay? What do you think it's going to look like? And what they describe will be totally different to what the first things that come to our mind. Because we're magicians, we need to train to not think like magicians to try and achieve better, more realistic magic. For instance, if someone said, okay, you've got to make a coin vanish, 99% of us are going to think, okay, I would do it like this, like this, like this, like this, all these funny hand motions, because that's what is instinctive to us as magicians. Those are our tools that we have, and we just look for those right tools to do the job. But I'm saying if you approach it from a real, as if it was real, if magic was really, you could really do it, if you approach it from that angle, you may not always find the way to do it, because obviously it's really, really hard, but you might find that you just have one element of this new way of thinking that you can apply to everything else that you do. So you could try and think about, if you could make a card vanish, if you could really do it, it would just disappear over like 5 seconds. You wouldn't be doing all this hand stuff. And just thinking about magic like that and trying to forget about the tools that we have, and I'm not saying these are bad, these are the best thing, you know, this is a whole art form, but just to try and get yourself out of this creative bubble, try and think how you would do the same effects that are already out there, but from a point of view where if magic was real, how would it look? Yeah, so I would hold a coin in my hand and it would just vanish. Or, now like to do that is really impossible, but you may not be able to achieve exactly what you want, but you might be able to push that barrier a bit. So if you can't make the coin vanish in your hand over the space of 5 seconds visually, what if you could just, okay, I can't do that, like it's not real magic, but what if I could just close my fist for a second and it goes, okay, well now you have a whole new set of tools to attack this with. You have so much more that you could exploit now from just adding one extra element to it. So does that make sense? So basically, imagine what it would look like if it was real, and push as much as you can to get it looking like it does. Now, you're not always going to be able to make a card just vanish in slow motion by staring at it, but think, okay, what can I do which kind of feels more normal than just tricky sleight of hand, and how can I just add it? Okay, then what if it, for instance, what if it was, okay, the card obviously can't vanish that slowly, I haven't got CGI, but what if I was to tilt it back, to blow on it and it vanishes? Well, suddenly you have a whole new dimension to exploit, you know, a whole new area of this, you know, the motions that you can exploit. And it sounds a bit tricky, but the more you practice it, the more it will make sense and the better you'll get at it. So just think of magic as if you could really do it. Try and imagine it if it was completely real, and push until you get as close as you can, and you have to just tweak it, and sometimes you'll get some really weird results. I think some of the shows and the magic that I put out, I try and get it looking as close to CGI, but in real life as possible. And if you just practice this, you'll surpass me. You'll be way better than I can do it. And the last tip I want to share with you today, and it's kind of a common one, but I go at it like only a little bit differently, is look at areas outside of magic and try and apply interesting things that you see to what you're creating. And what I do, for instance, now a lot of people will say they'll want to do an effect where ink changes. Okay, so they go, okay, I need to find ink that changes with heat or light or whatever, and they'll go and find that technology or try and research it. But what I do is I spend a lot of time on technology and science blogs and math web pages, just on their own, without a reason to be there, and just looking what exists and what's newly being created, or things that haven't really been explored much in our art form. And I just look and just spend time engulfing myself around it, and then I try and apply what I see that's interesting there to magic. Now, it could be a new technology that can make things float or vanish, or it could just be that you see a really cool optical illusion, which you think, you know what, that would be a really nice way to open this trick that I have, to make it relative to the audience. You can say, oh, you know, this does this, but this is an optical illusion. I'm going to try and do it for real. So this is my last tip, and I do it quite a lot, is just go through old science blogs, videos, read little interesting optical illusion books, look at interesting maths blogs that does tricks with maths, and it doesn't have to just apply to cards, it doesn't have to apply just to mentalism. There's a whole world of it out there that it can adopt to. But just look at other areas without anything specific in mind. Okay folks, so that's it for today's tip video. Hope you all enjoyed it. I could probably make about 20 more of these, so if you want to see some more, comment below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the video. The more you guys watch this, the more that they'll make for you. My name has been Lloyd Barnes, and I'll see you in the next tutorial video.